We all know what happens to people who cross Putin, so it's no wonder the family you're about to meet fled to the other side of the world to escape the Kremlin's wrath. After nearly 15 years on the run, this family is ready to find a permanent home.
It was British man Nick Stride's construction job that upended his normal life, thrusting him into Russia's corrupt world of elites. He was contracted to work on the refurbishment of a palace for this guy, Igor Shavalov, the then Deputy Prime Minister of Russia and Putin's right-hand man. Nick became fluent in Russian, had 2 kids with his Russian wife and raised them Russia style. But no one is safe for long in Putin's Russia. After nearly a decade of building Shavalov's palace, the Russians realised he knew too much. He and his family had to flee in the dead of the night. Where did they end up? Far north Western Australia, about as far away from Russia as they could get. They hid in a remote Aboriginal community, getting up close with wild pigs, sharks and crocs. They waited almost 8 years for the Australian government to grant them asylum, but that day never came.
Indeed, asylum from Australia never arrived, but Nick Stride is now safely in New Zealand, so he can speak to us about this. Nick, tell us about the moment you first realised you were in danger.
The first moment I realised in danger was probably the moment I landed in Russia, to be honest with you. We knew we were going to a country that's sort of fraught with danger, but the more the project went on, the more insecure we all felt.
In what way?
The Russians, I think the client's people were starting to get more and more sort of cautious that this Westerner had information that was probably quite damaging to particular politicians in the Kremlin.
What secrets were the Russians worried that you would expose?
A lot of it was the financial dealings. There's laws which possibly my client was breaking. I actually gave information to an American investigative journalist, so I'm not a lawyer myself, but he used that information to substantially prove that there was corruption in the Russian Kremlin. The biggest problem that I had was I was really a nobody, so if I was to disappear, nobody would have known about it, and people disappear in Russia all the time. While I was on the contract, there was 2 people that fell foul to part of the business out there, and it didn't end well for them. It's a very severe and harsh place.
Nick, can you give us some insight into what Russia was like at this time?
Exciting. It's very, very black and white. It's either very rich, very poor, very easy or very difficult. It's very dangerous and very safe at the same time. It all depends on how much you're aware of living there. For your average Russian, it's a particularly tough time, which is probably why they drink too much.
Nick, I'm very interested in your choice of bolt hole. You end up in WA, Western Australia, way up in the northwest, rough conditions. You were there for 3 years, pretty brutal. You weren't even being paid. How did you survive that?
Well, initially going to Australia, it was the furthest place away from Russia, which I thought that was pretty cool for my family to be as far away as possible. And it kind of suited that, obviously the lifestyle was very similar. Getting to Australia, we handed ourselves into immigration and we thought we'd just put our lives in their hands, but we just didn't fit in any box. And in the end, we were evading not just the Russians, but Home Affairs Australia, which is why we went even further into remoteness, which was the Dampier Peninsula in the Kimberleys.
Did you consider going back to the UK then?
UK was not really an option. At that time, the client that I was dealing with, as well as numerous other high-ranking Russians, have work, and now I'd be always looking over my shoulder. That was not a safe place to be.
What sort of damage has this done to your family? It must have been very stressful for them.
It's destroyed our family to a point. I mean, we're still trying to get ourselves back together.
It's an extraordinary story. Hope things work out for you and your family. Thank you very much for speaking to us tonight.
No, not a problem. Thank you.
And you can read Nick's full story in his new book, Run for Your Life, which comes out this Wednesday.